Okay, we'll be open for questions from the committee and see who wants to be first, if anybody. Senator Essman?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dobert was here for a while. Is he still out in the hallway? I know he offered some testimony.
Does anybody have a question for someone else in the meantime? Senator Harrison?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. A question for Susan from the Missoula Area an Agency.
Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Welcome. I have a simple question. I just wonder if you would rather get the allocation for area agencies on aging from the general fund or from cannabis taxation.
My preference is to get our senior programs funded. They've been cut, and the same with the Medicaid waiver and provider rate increases, and it will be extremely damaging to our ability to cost effectively serve our older Montanans. I would certainly prefer to have funding come from the general budget, but if the only alternative is this way, I would take it this way.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Don't see Mr. Dobert yet. Does anyone have a question? Does anyone else have a question for somebody that's in here? Senator Rozier?
Mr. Chairman, question for the sponsor.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Lewis, good morning.
Morning.
I noticed that there's a number of co-sponsors on the original bill of Senate Bill 154, and we now have a Greybill. I'm curious if you have spoken with and have sought the support of your co-sponsors for the Greybill.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's a good question. I just finished working with this group last night on the
when you say this, follow up
on the revisions. I think, based on the reaction of the people that I worked with in the industry, I would suspect that the co-sponsors would be satisfied with where we're going. But I do have to do that, and I will do that. In fact, if I can get it done today, I will talk to each of them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Essman?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'll ask my question to Mr. Gingery. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gingery, this has been a really interesting hearing on a bill. I dug out the code, and the Medical Marijuana Act that was passed in 2004 by the voters was 5 pages long. Senator Lewis has brought a 21-page bill originally, and now we're up to 39 pages in this Greybill. I mean, this bill has grown faster than your so-called industry. My question is related to the following words: storefront, exchange broker, businesses, testing facility, infused product manufacturer, industry, and more importantly, the word sale of marijuana or sale of cannabis. Do any of those words appear in the Medical Marijuana Act that was passed by the voters of Montana in 2004?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, no, I don't believe any of them do. And as often happens with legislation, particularly new legislation, clearly things have changed a great deal from where a lot of people thought they were back in 2004. And as an industry grows, as Senator Lewis said, it has become an industry, a very significant one to a number of people in the state at this point. It does require new regulation, and with new regulation, unfortunately, becomes more pages. and it comes with more definitions. And the attempt is to make sure that we cut out any of the gray areas. And I think even if you talk to some of the original bill sponsors back in 2004, they'd say there was not. In fact, Mr. Daubert has commented a number of times that there turns out that we needed more sideboards that were in that original act that was passed. Absolutely. And so that's what hopefully the Greybill does, is pull in many of those things that haven't been addressed for the last 6 years. So they are new terminology, absolutely, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kingery, I mean, if the word sale of marijuana or sale of cannabis, if the word industry, if the word infused product manufacturer, testing facility, businesses, exchange broker, storefronts were not in the original bill passed by the Montana voters in 2004, how can you assert that they would want this legislative body to institutionalize your so-called industry?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, one of the things that I think that we've heard loud and clear from virtually everyone except for those that wish to bring back prohibition, and I don't think there's any bill except for prohibition that would satisfy those people that wish to have prohibition. But many of the opponents of bills, in fact, proponents of some of the other bills that have been heard both in the Senate and in the House committees, have added regulation. And most everybody, again, with the exception of the prohibitionists, have said we need more regulation. Well, unfortunately, with more regulation, it requires more definition. So, Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's why the definitions were put in, to try and regulate this industry in such a way that it works. We need to get rid of the gray areas. We need regulation. And so that's where those extra names come from. You know, as I don't know if I answered your question.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gingrey, you know, I think this legislature would be, based upon the act that the Montana legislature passed, or the Montana voters passed in 2006, would be just as free to prohibit the sale of marijuana, because that never appeared in the act that was passed.
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Your comment.
Well, I mean, as I stated, Mr. Chairman, Senator, that as an industry grows, new regulation is required, and it has grown. It has been formalized. It's been professionalized, actually. What started out, I'm sure, in 2004, no one conceived it being to where it is today. A good, solid, legal operating industry where you've got people working very hard to help patients. You know, to really help the needy patients out there that really need this type of a medicine. So, you know, I wasn't part of the original draft in the original 2004, so I'm not an expert on every word in there, but I would presume that, I would certainly agree with you, that stuff's probably not in there. It's just a matter that at this point, we have a couple of options. It can be repealed. And if it repealed, then clearly it's an invitation back to the black market to come into Montana. We don't have Mexico here now. We don't have the other foreign countries here now. But I tell you, if it repeals and you put out of business 15, 20,000 people and put them on our unemployment rolls, that's not good for the state. What we need to do is regulate this. We need to do this the right way, and this is the one time that the state of Montana can stand up and say, you know what, we're going to do this right. Because quite frankly, the other states have not done it right yet. Colorado's still messing around with it because they keep dancing. So one of the hopes that comes out of this bill, the Greybill, is that there's appropriate sideboards, there's clear definition of what the rules are. It makes it much easier for law enforcement to operate and know who the bad guys are so we can get the bad guys out of here. Because we all want the bad guys out of here, no matter which side of the fence you're on. But to do that, we need to have appropriate regulation. We need to define the terms. We need to understand what it is that's going on. And hopefully, that's what comes out of this committee. Senator, Mr. Chairman.
Other committee questions? Senator Rozier.
Mr. Chairman, a question for you, if I can. I'm just curious about process because we've heard about the Greybill, and I'm wondering how do we make this Greybill, if it's going to be introduced as an amendment, and I think it substantially changes the bill itself, how do we make this available for public comment or input? Because to my understanding, the sponsors of the bill, or the co-sponsors of the bill, have no idea what is contained in the Greybill.
As it is, Senator, it is not going to be introduced as an amendment.
Okay.
It's merely the only way we can use it legally, because it's not an official legislative document, is for reference as we try, if we go the committee bill route, for instance, which is being talked about, and try to use parts of a lot of the marijuana bills to come up with something that is agreeable in both houses, then that can be, we can use that as reference material, as ideas, but it's not an official document, and it can't be given as an amendment as it stands now.
Okay, for clarification, because I'm still trying to understand this, this could potentially be a committee bill.
It could be turned into one, I guess. That's true, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there other questions from committee members? The bear's here now. Yeah, Senator Essman.
Mr. Chairman, now that Mr. Dobert is here, I'd like to ask him Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dobert, I'll repeat the question I asked Mr. Gingery, which is that, the Medical Marijuana Act is passed by the Montana voters, took up 5 pages. We went to a 21-page bill. Now we've got a 39-page bill. And words in that, in those various bills, but not the original act, include storefront, exchange broker, businesses, testing facility, infused product manufacturer, industry, and sale of marijuana and cannabis. And my question to him was, do any of those words appear in the Medical Marijuana Act that was passed by the voters of Montana in 2004?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Essman, the answer is no. And I would say several things. First, I had no involvement in the development of the Greybill. And second, Representative Smith in the House Human Services Committee asked me a somewhat similar question several weeks ago. And my basic answer was to say that in my naivete, perhaps at the time, in '04, I did not envision an industry, quote unquote. And in fact, I've often bristled at the term. So those of us who proposed it, who wrote what voters did adopt, did not envision quite the kinds of things we've seen. We did, however, imagine that people would become caregivers to groups of patients, neighbors, friends, relatives, and that might expand or lead to an expanded network of patients in a community using one or several particular caregivers, growers, under the lingo of this bill. And so I guess, in hindsight, I can say, well, the notion that some sort of professional industry could arise and develop over time is not foreign to me, but it was not something we were thinking of at the time. And what I told Representative Smith was, no, our sole focus at the time was patients. And that was the goal of allowing people with qualifying conditions to have access to different kinds of cannabis and cannabis products without fear of arrest, prosecution, and imprisonment. And the qualifying conditions in the law were not, as often as I often hear folks suppose, were not end-of-life conditions. They were, however, and are conditions that tend to be permanent once you get them, that tend to progress and worsen as one ages. But our focus at the time, And my focus remains patients and the need to allow patients to do what they need to do for the betterment of their health.
Follow-up?
So, Mr. Dolbear, in terms of the language that was on the ballot before the voters of Montana, it would be completely within the realm of argument that this legislature could uphold their original intent by developing a model that does not involve the sale and does not involve a business model and does not involve the development of a huge industry. Could we not do that and still provide a compassionate alternative, as you argue, for this group of patients you intended to help?
Well, I guess, Mr. Chairman, Senator Essman, I can't say no without knowing more what you might have in mind as an alternative to some sort of industry.
We'll be having those discussions. Thank you, Mr. Dolbear.
Thank you.
Are there further committee questions? Seeing none, I'll just make, before Senator Lewis closes, I'll go back to Senator Augier's question. Right now, the official status of this is no different than any of the other testimony sheets that were given to you. The only way it could become something that we would be considering for an act of the legislature is after it is rewritten by legislative legal staff under the direction of legislators. Hopefully that answers your question. And Senator Lewis may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for what I consider to be a very good hearing on a very complicated issue, which I made more complicated by proposing or giving additional information to the committees today. To answer one of Senator Essman's questions, how did we go from a 21-page bill in Senate Bill 154 to the discussion paper that I furnished to the committee, which is 39 pages? Part of what changed was when I started with this thing, I had no appreciation for what the distribution system looks like, how it operates, what reality is. And so as we got further and further into it, I kept adding more and more to the discussion paper. And I certainly recognize what you're saying, Mr. Chairman. That was mainly prepared because and I'll just take the credit for it, I guess, my guess was that the committee would be struggling with perhaps trying to merge the bill from the interim committee and perhaps this bill and some other bills, and simply wanted to make that information available if the committee takes that particular course. I guess to address some of the things that came up, Ms. Brady and some of the other opponents, I know they have good intentions. They really are operating honestly and right up front with their opposition to the use of medical cannabis. They're doing what they think is the right thing. I guess we take a different track is that I'm looking around saying, what's here today? I'm the ultimate realist, I guess. We have something like 30,000 people with cards issued pursuant to the law that allow them to use medical cannabis. We have somewhere from 10 to 15,000 people working in an industry that is worth somewhere between $150 and $350 million a year. I don't think you can put the toothpaste back in the tube. I mean, I think that at this point we have to recognize what we have. We have to try and make it fit and work so that is an industry that is regulated and overseen to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. I want to know how much is grown, I want to know where it goes, and I want to know who ends up with it. And that's going to require a license fee because it's going to have a regulatory system, a much, much smaller regulatory system than my original thought of trying to do this with a gross sales tax. So, again, Mr. Chairman, I know that you have a difficult task ahead of you. I would suspect you might, in fact, see the repeal bill come out of the House. I don't know because it's in House Appropriations, having served on that committee for years, who knows what's going to come out. But anyway, you probably will have a repeal bill over here to look at. You need to have the option of reviewing some type of regulatory process. I think this bill, Senate Bill 154, could be part of that review and part of that consideration. And again, look forward to working with you. Certainly will be available if the committee wants me to come in and sit down and meet with staff or whatever and talk about the specifics in the bill. And thank you again for a long and I think very good hearing, because I think it's a difficult subject, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. This will close the hearing on Senate Bill 154. Committee, we won't try to do any executive action today. On Monday, I just want to call your attention to the fact that we will come in at 10 o'clock again into committee on Monday, and we will be up in room 405 for one bill, which is Senate Bill 262, that's Senator Blewett's bill on elder abuse. And hopefully we can take some exec that time. Thanks a lot, and we're in adjournment.